Alright, remarkably, on to Fans Pulse Lap 4 already of episode 10. Hope you've enjoyed the previous segments. And we're going to round off this week with a bit of a spotlight on something that I can't possibly comment very much on, because I'm the only person in this conversation who has never been a Speedway rider. But I would be intrigued to know firsthand from Speedway riders, what are the best and worst things about being one. And one thing that I will say, just to kick things off, many times in my lifetime I have said to current riders or former riders that you had the best job in the world, and I have always been so jealous of you guys earning a living or a contribution to your living through riding Speedway. So I'll eternally be jealous of what you guys ever managed to achieve. But Andy Meredith, I'm going to come to you first of all. Best and or worst things about being a Speedway rider. So off the top of your head, name some things.
Oh, well, back in the day, it would have been sort of, obviously the racing and the winning was always the best thing. Get in there, with the fans, and sort of, I used to quite enjoy the travelling as well. Actually getting up and around, because we only raced in this country then, so up and down the country, different fans here, there, and everywhere, seeing different people. That was good, and obviously back in the early 90s there was a lot of parties, and the social side of Speedway then was just phenomenal. It was almost as important as the racing, as daft as that may sound. So that was certainly the best parts for me. The worst parts was the odd Audi, the 4.0s that just didn't, that was just always a long journey home, but and rain-offs. Nobody really liked to rain off, but that's got to be the best parts and the worst parts for me.
Andy, just one question before I move on to the other guys. So you hung up your steel shoe, I don't know how many years ago it was, but a bit longer ago than either of the two Stewarts. But what's the biggest miss, Andy? What is the one thing that you perhaps miss most when you think back?
I think for probably camaraderie, really. We all, whilst we were all, deadly serious with each other at the start line and deadly serious around the pits and things, but we all got on, as daft as it sounds. We would go into the bar, we'd all have a drink, and we'd all, it doesn't matter how hard of a race you had, there was always something in the bar. And even with the referees, you get excluded by a referee, you'd go up and have a pint with them. And that, I kind of miss all that side, and the camaraderie definitely amongst riders. That's definitely been missing for me.
Fair to say, Andy, though, you've made some lifelong friends through Speedway, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, both, obviously Stuart and Stuart, both of these guys, I've ridden against, and, I have the utmost respect for them both. And, Stuart McDonald there, he was in the race when my career ended. So, we'll always have that respect and that friendship there, because without him, I may not have been here, because he did a fantastic job avoiding me. So, but yeah, you do make friends up and down the country, different parts of the world, and you could, when you're a Speedway rider, you can go pretty much anywhere and you would know somebody, at different parts all over the world.
Thank you, Andy. Robbo, to bring you in, Andy's mentioned there some of the travel. He enjoyed some of the travel, the comradeship, I guess some of the accolade, the sort of public profile and the appreciation that supporters poured on Speedway riders. From your point of view, Stuart, it's been quite a few seasons now since you packed it in. But what would you miss the most, Stuart? Can you put your finger on?
Same as Andy, I miss the social side to it. I really enjoyed that, and I did enjoy the travelling. It was an adventure, the travelling. That was always good, and I never minded it at all. I used to do a lot of the driving myself. It just kept that actually stopped me from getting nervous, because I was concentrating on what I was doing. If I was just sitting around sort of thinking about racing, then I would get nervous. But yeah, from what Andy said there, it's the same for me. I miss the social side to it altogether. You get big camaraderie with everyone, the friendship the friendship you've made throughout the years. I don't see anybody now, because I don't get a chance to get to Speedway tracks. But, I made friends all over the world. So and I used to go to Australia a lot. I've been out to MEREDITH a few times. So I always went to see the people. I went for as many of the people as I could that I got to know during racing.
On the injury side, Stuart, you know, I imagine that's obviously a downside, and you know, and some riders are fortunate enough that when they step away from the sport, that you know they haven't had too many injuries, or certainly not anything particularly serious. You look at some of the recent injuries that Ty Woofenden has had, for example, and you know, and he seems. Ty Woofenden, I don't know if you've ever watched 360 Speedway, Ty, but your credit to you, because you are doing hours in the gym that are putting me to shame. Despite your injuries, you're putting in the hard graft, and you're obviously seeing the physical benefits of that. But what I was going to ask you though, Stuart, was, you know, some riders, sadly, you know, have injuries that they then suffer from in later life, right? You know, even broken bones, I would imagine, might become arthritic in later life, etc. And that's a side of the sport that I guess that impacts real life. You know, long after the speedway years have finished.
It does, yes. I actually have arthritis in my right wrist from an injury from the right house in 2006, I think it was. I had an operation on it, and because I broke the scaphoid and I broke the wrist bone, I don't know what that's called, and I had to have full screw put into the scaphoid, and the injuries have come back to haunt me there, them particular ones. And I've since had a couple of operations on that wrist to try and release the pain. At the moment, it's not as bad. It's not too bad, and it's been pretty decent for a couple of years. But the movement is very restricted in that wrist. I can't put my hand, like if I do press up, I can't put my hand flat on the floor, so I have to go on my fist. And I can't bend it too far with it either. But that is one of the downsides of the sport.
It's a hard life. It is a hard life. You know, I know I said I was jealous, and I am eternally jealous, but at the same time, I have my eyes open to how much of a difficult existence it can be to be a speedway rider. Stuart McDonald, thinking back, you know, what about the actual thrill of racing, Stuart? You know, is there anything, you know, in your lifetime post speedway or outside of speedway, have you ever done anything that comes even close to the thrill of the exhilaration of racing a speedway bike and winning heats?
I don't think anything ever will. You know, I've been on a snowboard, I've been on road bikes, motocross, you know, fast cars, aeroplanes, but the buzz of riding a speedway bike, you'll never beat that. I don't care what anybody says, and that's one of the massive things that you do miss, the buzz of being able to get around a track, you know, free, as fast as you want. Don't get me wrong, I crashed quite a lot of times, but that was one of the best parts about it. But also what the guys were saying there, the social aspect of it, I mean, that was what speedway was all about. It was, you know. I mean, I remember helping an American rider at Poole, Kelly Moran, God rest him, and I was only 16 and I was mechanicking for him. I was doing a second half, and he had the old toolbox, you know, the one that you opened up, the old style one, Andy, you know, the ones that you pull up the trays, and at the bottom of it there was a half bottle of whiskey that he used to keep to refuel himself. And that was when I realised that when you get into the bar after it, I mean, Poole was my first experience and my biggest experience, because down there, 25 degrees, 10 o'clock at night, the meeting's finished, and it didn't matter who fell out with each other, who knocked who off. Everybody was cuddling in the bar after it and having a pint. You know, what Andy says, the amount of referees that would outdrink the riders, and that's after knocking them off and excluding them and cost them £100. But the riders would get a pint by the referee bought to them. And it was just the experiences, they'll live with me forever. You know, I've got some great stories that I couldn't quite tell on air, but that was what made Speedway. You know, the social aspect of it. You know, the getting home after it, and you know, we spoke before about the Waverley Hotel in Workington. That was another big one. You know, Poole, Coventry was TGI's. You know, Coventry and TGI's was like they were merged. They just had a bridge. You know, and the buzz of winning. I mean, I was fortunate to win a couple of league titles, and see the buzz when you've got fans pulling your arms, jumping on top of you, you know, and cuddling you. It's amazing. But on the flip side of that, you know what Andy said about what unfortunately ended his career, I remember going to see Andy after his accident in the Southern General, and I left one of the nights, and I never told you this, I left one of the nights with a tear in my eye, because I seen how badly affected you were by it, and it obviously ended your career. But to see you lying there in that bed, it scared me a little bit, and that was one of the worst things you can think about Speedway is the injuries, and seeing somebody in that position. It was, I've had my fair share of injuries, arthritis, but we're still here, we're still living, we're still breathing, and we've had I think all three of us have had great careers in Speedway, albeit how short they might have been for myself and Andy. But the friends that I've made through Speedway, it's a family. Speedway's a family, and to the day I die, I will still speak about Speedway as if it's, part of my life, and it always will be. And, it's just a family, and you can't beat it.
Can I ask you about, a question to all of you about the adoration side of it? So Shane Parker, another former Ipswich rider who didn't get a mention earlier, a very worthy mention now. Shane Parker, when he retired and headed back to Australia, mentioned to me privately that one of the things that he knew that he would miss the most was the public adoration, right? So whichever track you went to, and you make your own luck, you make your own reputation. So Shane was obviously ever popular everywhere that he went, but it was quite sobering thought when Shane mentioned that one of the things that he would mention that we'd miss, the most was that sort of public attention.
Yeah, I think so. I think when you finish racing, it's kind of, it almost like just stops there and then. Suddenly the phone stops ringing. You don't get, when you turn up to meetings, you kind of feel like a bit of an outsider, when you're going in. That's certainly how I felt, for a while. It wasn't because anybody was making me feel that way. It's just that, and that's one of the reasons why I walked away from the sport in '95, because I was involved with Oxford at the time, helping with the team and all that sort of thing. And I had to walk away because I felt like I just weren't, I wanted to be more involved with the team and wanted to be riding, but I couldn't do that. So I felt like I had to walk away at that point. So that bit was quite difficult, for sure, because you felt like you're a bit of an outsider at that point.
It makes complete sense to me. Robbo, is that something you can relate to?
Since I quit, I've only been to probably half a dozen meetings, and I do feel like an outsider. You want to be part of it still, and that's just that's how it was for 25 years for me. I was part of it the whole time, so it's difficult. I do enjoy going to watch, but I want to be part of it still, and it's kind of hard not to be.
One question I'd like to ask, guys, and I don't know whether in the fullness of time you might have had thoughts around this, or whether you were conscious of it at the time. So, as you grow as a person, you start Speedway in your teens, right? As you grow into your 20s and you begin to have families and things like that, is it reasonable to suggest that being a Speedway rider requires some disciplines, etc., but some sacrifice and maybe a little bit of selfishness around focusing on the Speedway career, potentially to the detriment sometimes of family and friends?
I think when you mentioned that, Derek, like Andy had touched earlier on about back in the day, I don't think it made any difference about focus, because Speedway was like a bit of a job but a bit of a party as well. So the professionalism now is taken to another level. I don't go as much now as I used to, but I know that you don't see, Bartosz Marzlik with 6 pints in the bar at Bellevue, swinging from one of the chandeliers. Whereas back in the day you did, and I think the focus back then was more, let's get a bevy after the match, let's sleep it off the next day and go again the next night. And I know riders that would drink all day, all night, and get it the next day and they go and miss a meeting and be phenomenal. And I think back then the focus was different. Now it's 100% professional. I think the way that the world is now, the costs, health and safety, all the rules and regulations now, I think sort of stop us from having that social part of it as much. But I do think that back in the day, the professionalism was just you jumping a bike and racing. It was natural. I don't think it was, I never done anything special. You used to train a little bit, maybe road machines, things like that. But general terms, you know, a couple of pints and away you go.
Well, listen, I think we all feel, in life generally, I think we feel that we're in different times, and even 10 years, 20 years ago was almost a different era. And I'm at the time of life where I certainly feel that modern life is completely different from the life that I enjoyed and was accustomed to, even in my earlier days. But that's a whole different subject whatsoever. So there we are, 360 Speedsters. We've reached the end of episode 10. I hope you've enjoyed the discussion topics tonight. Thank you very much, Andy Meredith, for making your debut on 360 Speedway. Thanks again to the two Stuarts, Mac and Robbo, for your input. And
cheers, Andy. Cheers, Robbo.
So 360 Speedsters, we'll leave you, if you don't mind. I hope you enjoyed the content once again. Please do keep across our social media output. Please do encourage others to help and grow the 360 Speedway family on Facebook and on the other platforms. If there's anything you can do to encourage a few more followers to pick up some of our output, that would be very much appreciated. And most of all, remain interactive and help to push out all of the 360 Speedway content into the social media stratosphere, is what we like to call it. Anyway, listen, enjoy the rest of your week, enjoy your weekend, and most of all, enjoy your Speedway. See you next week.
Thank you.